Picture this, a single country that is home to literally 1/6 of humanity. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to take raw demographic census data and translate it into the fascinating, living story of the world's most dynamic population, India. We'll be exploring how these massive numbers on a page actually represent a breathing human landscape that ultimately impacts the entire global economy.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the billion-person question, move into density, trace the phases of growth, explore the cultural mosaic, look at the workforce shift, and finish up with empowering the future. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The billion-person question.
So as of the 2011 census, we're looking at 1.21 billion people. That staggering figure makes it the second most populous country on Earth at the time of that count. And honestly, it's a number so huge that just the act of counting it is a mind-boggling logistical undertaking. You're mobilizing millions of census workers to reach literally every corner of the subcontinent. This sheer volume is the foundational reality that shapes every single aspect of the country's infrastructure, its politics, and its future.
To really wrap our heads around that kind of scale, think about it this way. If you took every single person living in North America, South America, and Australia and put them all together in one place, you still wouldn't match the human concentration of this single nation. 3 entire continents combined, completely outmatched. It's a phenomenal demographic reality, and it absolutely dictates how the world's resources are consumed and developed.
All right, Section 2. Mapping the density.
Now think about the physical space around you, because in just 60 years, the physical pressure on the land has steadily tripled. Back in 1951, the country was sitting comfortably at 117 persons per square kilometer. But fast forward to 2011, and that number surges to 382 people occupying that exact same square kilometer of space. You can imagine how the day-to-day reality of life completely transforms when your surroundings literally become 3 times more crowded over just one human lifetime.
But you know, standard density kind of only tells part of the story. Think of crude density like counting everyone living in a massive house. Physiological density, on the other hand, is like measuring how many of those people are trying to stand in the kitchen at the exact same time. By dividing the total population specifically by the net cultivated area, we get a much clearer and honestly a much more startling picture of the intense pressure placed squarely on the actual food-producing land to sustain a billion lives.
Moving on to Section 3. 4 phases of growth.
This century-long timeline is basically the classic story of demographic transition. It's not just data, right? It's a historical narrative. It kicks off in a stagnant phase with very high mortality rates, moves into steady growth as early health and sanitation start to improve, and then it violently erupts into a massive population explosion post-independence. That explosion happens because medical advancements like vaccines cause death rates to suddenly plummet, while cultural birth rates naturally took decades to adjust. And finally, we arrive at today's phase, a gradually slowing growth rate, heavily driven by modern education and delayed marriage ages.
Next up, Section 4. India's cultural mosaic.
When a lot of us think of India, our minds instantly go to these bustling, hyper-modern megacities like Mumbai or Delhi. Yet, despite all this rapid urbanization we hear about, nearly 69% of the population still lives in a rural setting. The true heartbeat and just the sheer volume of the country remains deeply rooted at over 640,000 spread-out villages. It makes India a fundamentally decentralized, village-based society at its very core.
And then we layer on the immense linguistic complexity. Oh boy. A single nation functioning with 22 scheduled languages, 179 total languages, and over 500 dialects across 4 major language families. That is nothing short of a miracle of social cohesion. What's absolutely fascinating here is that these linguistic regions don't even have sharp, hard borders. They just seamlessly merge and overlap across frontier zones, creating this incredibly vibrant, interconnected cultural fabric.
Let's shift gears to Section 5, the workforce shift.
So, economically speaking, only about 40% of the population are actually classified as active workers, which leaves a massive 60% as dependents. But we have to understand who these dependents actually are. This category includes children, students pursuing higher education, the elderly, and millions of unpaid domestic workers. This structural reality puts an intense amount of pressure on the active workforce to earn and basically support the entire wider non-working population.
Now, if we zoom in on that active working population, the heavy reliance on physical labor becomes immediately clear. Over half the workforce is intrinsically tied to the land, either as cultivators or agricultural laborers. But definitely do not overlook the household industrial workers. We're talking about small-scale artisans, weavers, home-based businesses. They make up a massive, absolutely vital informal economy that operates right outside your traditional corporate structures.
But here's where things get really interesting. A pivotal economic crossroads is actively happening. The reliance on farming dropped noticeably over just a single decade, from 58.2% in 2001 down to 54.6% in 2011. This represents literally millions of people migrating away from ancestral farmlands and moving into urban factories, IT hubs, and service industries. It's a monumental, highly visible sign of industrialization, pulling workers into entirely new livelihoods, and it's fundamentally reshaping the Indian economy.
Finally, Section 6, Empowering the Future.
If development is not engendered, it is endangered. This is such a powerful statement from the UN Development Program, and it highlights a non-negotiable socioeconomic truth. Engendered here means ensuring women are fully and equally involved, because if biological differences are turned into social exclusions, it acts as a massive economic deadweight. You simply cannot progress as a modern global power if half of your population is excluded from equal education and employment.
To directly combat these historical exclusions, we're seeing massive policy responses implemented at the national level. The Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign, which translates to Save the Girl Child, Educate the Girl Child, is a nationwide effort designed to ensure equal opportunities. It actively works to promote gender sensitivity and to dismantle the very barriers that have historically held women back from the workforce.
And getting this right is absolutely crucial, because nearly 21% of the entire population are adolescents. This sets up what economists love to call a demographic dividend. Think of it as a rare, golden window for a country where you have significantly more young, working-age people than elderly dependents. It creates the perfect environment for a massive economic boom, provided, and this is a big provided, this youth cohort is given the right skills, nutrition, and opportunities.
Which leaves us with a pretty staggering thought to end our explainer today. What happens when over 250 million empowered, educated young Indians fully enter the modern workforce? Well, they won't just change their own country's economy, they are going to completely redefine the global future. The sheer scale of this generation's potential is boundless. Thanks for tuning into this explainer, and remember to always keep looking for the real human story hidden inside the data.